Okay, we're live on our Facebook Live on the phone.
Awesome, Quiana, Kelsey, thank you so much. All right, well, welcome everyone. Welcome to our Thursday wellness event. I've been counting and this one is our 18th event. So really happy to see all of you. Glad to see all of your faces. And as we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the Indigenous homelands that we're all on, no matter where we're zooming in from. In Alaska, we're all calling in from Indigenous homelands, and so it's really important that we acknowledge that in the work that we're all doing. For us to really make a difference, we're going to all need to be that change and, represent and acknowledge Indigenous people in all spaces. And so, Chinan to the Denaina in Anchorage, where I'm calling in from today. So if you could please mute your phones as you're joining us. We're just smoothing out some technical difficulties here. As you know, each week is really different, but we're all happy to be here today. And super excited for our guests. And I just wanted to remind everyone that, our wellness events were really created as a place for us to stay connected with our communities. And it's grounded in our wellness with one another. And our focus is on promoting Indigenous well-being, founded on respect and understanding. Those are really important values to us. Our wellness is grounded in those values and our traditional ways of life. And so that's our intention in this space. We seek to uphold that love and respect for one another and that responsibility to one another. So we speak with care and we hold one another up. So we're really excited to have Eva and Flora with us today. And what our hour is going to look like is we're going to start off with Eva, and then we'll have a short transition time in between for any discussion, and then we'll hand it over to Flora. And then towards the end, we'll have some more time for Q&A. And I also want to encourage everyone to use the chat feature, have some conversations. And so with that, before I turn it over to Eva, I want to share a native wellness word. And today, the word that came to mind is chara'a, in which chara'a means that we are eating. We are eating together. And I think that's such a great word for today. And I'm just really happy to hear what Eva and Flora are going to share with us about how food is medicine. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Eva Burke and let her tell us all about how she's uplifting wellness with food. So Basi, Eva, for being here, and I'll turn it over to you.
Basi, Rochelle, thank you for inviting us. I was trying to figure out how to do speaker view, but it's there. So Duenda, Eva Don Burke, Suudra, Tagatili, and Manly Hot Springs, Katana Eslana, Ina Joy Burke, Bauzra, Ta'a Burke, Bauzra, Olin Didio, and Setsia Billy Burke Didio. Hi, I'm Eva Dawn. I'm from Nenana in Manly Hot Springs, right here in the interior of Alaska. And my parents are Dim and Joy Burke, and my grandparents are Lina Olin and Billy Burke. And I was really excited when Rochelle reached out because I just finished a big project where, returning to your traditional foods and preparing them also requires a bit of advocacy to protect the land and waters that those foods come from. So I just thank Native People's Action and other groups, like Native Movement across Alaska for their community organizing and bringing people together in these spaces so that we can learn from one another. And I'm really excited to have Flora Deacon with me today. She is an excellent chef and a teacher, and she is one of our traditional knowledge holders around food and plants. And so I'm really excited to hear and learn about her recipes today. So I just wanted to go over a few topics. One is a little bit of background for my research around the 7 dimensions of wellness. And then I really teased out that food and harvesting and preparing food really ties all those dimensions together, and that a seasonal lifestyle, looking and living at our lives by season is really important as Indigenous people. And I got to keep an eye on the time because I'm a talker. So I wanted to cover some wellness and traditional healing methods that really tie into those 7 dimensions of wellness. And then also just share through storytelling, like why am I doing this and how did I get here? So this is my busiest slide with the most words. And we see all of these ways that people look at health. And for me, I don't like to break it down in dimensions because health is holistic. But for thinking about ways in which we can strengthen each dimension so that we're really working on our health as in a holistic way. And so I'll start here at I'll start environmental, because I feel as we've transitioned with colonialism and the taking of lands and the management of our wild food resources, that there's a disconnect to our environment, and that we see the health of the environment being degraded because of the disconnect of Indigenous people from their homelands. And so reconnecting to the land and strengthening those relationships with the land, the waters, the air, the plants, the animals, the people is really key to shifting. We're all aware of climate change, and people across the world are like, how do we work together? And it's really by reconnecting to the lands and treating everything as a relative. And then the social cultural of, how we express what's important to us, our values, through family, relationships, our art, our language, song and dance. I think as Indigenous people, and especially in Alaska, we've really used our art and song and dance, and now we're, revitalizing our languages. I really feel like we're in this shift to really fill those shoes and live up to our ancestors. And then in occupational, we're all taking these jobs, and I feel like as we think about industrialization and how globalization has really taken away some of the jobs that, that people had, their labors of love, their crafting jobs, the makers, the nurturers, the people that did traditional healing for their people. Everybody has a role, and everybody has natural skills and talents. And so in our matriarchal societies, the grandmothers and mothers were aware of everybody's skills. They kind of were like little computers, or like, hey, these people are good, they should be together, and really setting up the roles in the community to function. I was learning about this in my traditional ecological class from Teresa John, who's Yupik, and I thought that was really cool. And then emotional, I think the sweat lodges and the talking circles that we used to have to connect to one another, to get our stuff out on the table and have a space where we can just share without feedback, without judgment, just a sharing circle, I think is really important to nurturing our emotional side. And then physical, harvesting food takes a lot of strength and skill and practice. You have to do it every day, and that kept our physical bodies well, not only eating that food, but actually hunting and gathering and fishing. All of those activities kept us strong. And then from what I know about our indoor games, the Eskimo Indian games, those traditional games came about so that you could keep your body strong indoors during the cold weather, so that you didn't, you were prepared when it warmed up and you could go back out on the land. And then intellectual, we have to use our brains. Our brains are muscles too. And so we always have to be learning all the time. And that education for me, and I think a lot of Indigenous people, is hands-on with observation and practice. And when we go to school, they're like, you got to focus on this one thing. And I'm like, well, what about this and that and this? And really being a global thinker. And I find that to be really useful when we're looking at climate change, because we are global thinkers. And if anybody should be in those spaces for thinking about adapting to climate change, it really needs to be Indigenous people. And so I encourage people to always continue learning, whether it's going to college or learning on the land, traditional knowledge. Right now, I'm learning how to build fish wheels and find the best fishing eddies, how to read the weather. I'm learning how to do beaver trapping. And then spiritual, we have to nurture our spiritual side through ceremony and praying, giving thanks, gathering before the harvest season to pray over it, to gathering after the harvest season to be thankful for the bounty. And then also a redistribution of wealth, I think, at Christmas is really nice. That's what I do in my own family. We all do. If one of us has a better year, we share, so that we make sure everybody has food in their freezer, clothes to wear, and somewhere to sleep. And that, we are the original caretakers of the land, the original stewards. And so how do we begin to take that role again in society and drive the dialogue really around natural resources management, around policy changes that affect our food sovereignty and security? We have to be in those spaces. So that was the busiest slide. And this is the seasonal slide that I was talking about all this food and how I was trying to explain that some parts of the years, that we have to get ready for other parts of the years. We're always thinking ahead and living in season. And so, to me, when I think about this and how I'm trying to balance my life, when you live in the city, this seasonal calendar, it's really hard to live by this, because when you live in the city, you have so many Western deadlines that you have to meet, and these schedules, and sometimes there'll be a big grant due right before a planned moose hunt for me. This summer, fishing regulations, I had worked really hard to build a fish wheel, and the fishing regulations shut me down. And so really being aware of your calendar every year, and what food sources are available, what will you need to go harvest those food sources, how will you prepare and preserve your foods. And I think as I start to build this work of revitalizing traditional foods, one of the first things that I want to do is have a spring gathering and a fall gathering at these shoulder seasons. The spring gathering so that we can collect traditional plants and medicines and, start to share stories. It's really when you start to gather people and you share these stories that you start to learn from one another. And then in the fall, I want to gather again after the moose season and after fishing season, because really this is a time of reflection right here about, what was good, what was challenging, what do we need to do to protect our foods? After I went through that fishing season, I was like, I need to be an advocate. Like, this is serious. And so this fall season is really a time to give thanks for what you had, but also to reflect and develop strategies that you can work on through the winter when you can do your reading and writing, And so that's how I'm trying to set up my life, so that I have the time I need to go fishing or moose hunting or beaver trapping, or out in the spring to go bird hunting and get some whitefish. So I'm really trying to build those breaks in my life and be intentional. I started my own business so that I could do this work. It's very scary and challenging, but it's working out. And that's that spiritual side, having faith in what my path is. So I wanted to shift over to some storytelling because I feel like that is the best way to engage people, and it really helps you visualize what I'm experiencing with my own family. This is my son, Freddie. My son, Freddie, is in a special education class, not because he doesn't have the knowledge. He's actually a A and B student. He's very sharp, but we've had trauma in our life. And Freddie's father has been in jail his entire life, and Freddie is now 11 years old. And so one thing I had to really work on was trying to find a way to connect with my son. And I realized that, you know, I started about 3 years ago. I went to the Yukon Bridge, and I stayed at the Pitca's Island, and I began to help them revitalize their fishing traditions. But what I seen was like my kids came to life, and my son just started to develop an obsession with fishing. And so he really impresses me, this little guy right here, his little knives and all his little poles. He's only 11, and 10 years old, he figured out how to go on Google, find the bodies of water near him, look to see what kind of fish were in there, and then also look to see what kind of equipment and lures he needed to catch those fish, what kind of bait. And then also he goes around, and he must have got it from his mom, but he goes around and he talks to the other fishermen and sees how their day is and what's working for them and what's not. And then also learning how to read the weather. Is it going to be a good fishing day, or should we do something else today because we probably won't catch too much? So you saw him combining two knowledge systems to become a better fisherman, and quickly. That was what was so cool about it. It was like this instant healing for my son. And as you can see, he does this throughout the year. And this keeps him well, and it keeps me well, because as a parent, when you see your child proud like this, you know, and happy and content and calm, it's really something. You feel like you've really, really got somewhere. And the other thing is, this boy can cook. He's only 10 years old. He knows how to cut this fish and clean it. He'll give some to the elders next door. He'll fry it up and eat it. He likes to eat the whole thing. As you've seen in that other picture, it was nothing but bones. So I taught him everything, not only how to catch it, but how to cook it too. And he really is, it's really making him shine. And then, you know, learning together. You know, it's been 30 years since I've had the time, and honestly, I would even say interest at some times. I was too busy trying to worry about finding the best paying job, or, you know, spending my money on entertainment, when really I wasn't carving out time to go onto the land and learn from my father and mother. And so in these past few years, I've been really driving this family time around fish camp. And it all started on the Yukon. And we decided there's nothing like making fish in your own grandfather and grandma's smokehouse. There's just no better feeling. And so I had to go back over to the Tanna River, where I'm from. My fish camp is at Rock Crossing, and that's the name of my business I own, Rock Crossing Consulting. And the nonprofit we're opening to complement that is Tla Denaldel, which is the Athabascan word for rock crossing. And it's significant to us because it was a place where caribou crossed before. And this was a place that my grandfather picked as it was a rock eddy for fishing. I can see that my grandfather was very much an engineer, and that my father carries on a lot of his knowledge. And so it's really special when you go to here and you know all the generations of knowledge that are going into this work. It's so special. And in these pictures, my dad is teaching me how to read the river and drive the boat. And so I'm pretty comfortable driving the boat 90 miles downriver, 90 miles back up. I had to drive in a few storms and with a broken motor, and I watched my dad fix a lower unit by putting a piece of willow in there. Indigenous scientist, I'm telling you. And with my son, you know, I taught him to use big knives early because he can. He's got the dexterity and skills to do that. So I let him, and I encourage it. And then here my father is teaching the boys how to use hand tools, power tools. So, you know, back in the day, we everything was done by hand and hand tools. There was no generator, there was no power tools. But sometimes some of these modern conveniences are very helpful, especially when, you know, Dad and I were traveling back and forth from Nenana. That's 180 miles round trip. And it took us a lot of gas money. And both of us, we were working and putting every dollar into getting everything we needed to build the wheel and run the wheel. And I was teaching my baby girl how to cut the fish, the strips, to make jarred strips. And I put little markers on here for her to use on her knife so she knows how big to make it. And you can see her little face on these kids, the pride and confidence they get in being able to do these things and achieving their goals is very special. And I just want to point out something too. You know, my family, we have a lot of trauma. There's a lot of dysfunction, a lot of substance abuse, all kinds of other issues. And this brought us together. You know, it's been many years. You know, I hear people saying, I haven't talked to my sister in 10 years. I just can't. And, you know, we were able to come together because we all had this common goal. And yes, we had our differences, but we were like, we're here to make fish. Let's talk about our differences after we make the fish. You know, that what I was talking about after that season, when you have to gather and reflect, is really important to your continuing it together and your sustainability, your family wellness. You know, you'd be surprised the healing and recovery that you can find. And you know, when I was building a fish wheel in Nenana, there's a lot of people suffering from addiction, and they came out to help. And you could see that it was just, they loved it. It was something for them to do, and it was something that they wanted to do, most importantly. And then here, I just want to talk about advocacy before I transition to my last slide too, is, you know, this is my grandmother, Lina Olin, with my uncle Johnny right here. And this is her sister, Elvie Burke. This is my grandma that raised me. My grandma died young. My dad and my uncle. And as you can see, this is a family effort. Fish camp is a family effort. It brings you together. And when I was cutting this fish, there was a time when I hadn't cut fish that much, and I was feeling stressed and practically in tears, and I just prayed to my grandma. I was like, please, I need my hands to work with my mind, and I need to become connected all the way. And through that prayer, I started to just feel my hand start doing what it needed to do, and everything started to come together in my mind. And I was like, I can do this. This is so easy for me. This is what I'm meant to do, you know, as I cut. And my sister, I was able to teach my sister, and you can see that she has a pretty big face. And it was really nice to be that carrier of knowledge that I could share. I felt like superwoman a little bit, and pretty special in that moment. In the sharing part, right? All of this is so that you can give food to the elders and the children. Everything I do is so that I could learn how, because I was of the age and had the resources to be the fisherwoman. And so I needed to do that for the other people in my community. In Nenana, a lot of on the Tanana River, our smokehouses are abandoned. On the Yukon River, many smokehouses are abandoned. I was really excited to hear last year that there was like 70 smokehouses that were somebody said 70, I don't know where that number come from, but there was a lot of people out on the river fishing and wanting to engage and learn their culture. And I think that's really awesome. And in this picture, you know, some of these foods right here I'm learning how to make. Like I can make pretty good smoked salmon strips now, and I can make good dry meat, but there's some seal oil here and then some whitefish eggs that were made into caviar. And some of these other finer recipes I'm really wanting to learn more about. And that's why I feel like in our work, you know, the greenhouse that was in the paper, you know, education and multi-generational learning are all part of that. So this is my neighbor, Dorothy, and I bring food over to her house, and we call it meat therapy. And we'll cut up some moose meat and make a little dry meat on that clothesline. My grandma taught me to do this in the city, on that little clothes rack, and then you hang the meat and just dry it right in your house. But for us to have meat therapy together and smell it and cut it, and it was just so beautiful, and it connected us and it grounded us in our work. And so the last thing I want to mention is the advocacy. You know, it was the people in Benty and Minto who were explaining to me about the sports hunting, the guided big game hunts in Alaska. You know, there is commercialization of our food resources. So I really encourage people, you know, in the interior of Alaska at Tanana Chiefs Conference, we have a hunting, fishing, and gathering task force. The work of this group is essential to the long-term sustainability of our foods. And so I would really encourage people to get involved with that. And then also traditional knowledge and recipe. I'm going to be putting out some surveys and stuff online. I've connected with a few people that are going to take me out to do beaver trapping and do some recipes. And so, you know, if other people know of people like that and want to share that information, I would like to travel and learn from other people. That is a big goal of mine. And so I'm going to, this is the end of my presentation, and I want to transition over to Flora. Did you want to stop sharing for a minute here, Rochelle?
Basi, Eva, if we wanted to take a minute for any comments, we could do that for a few minutes. You can leave this picture up. I think we're enjoying it. Yeah, but I just wanted to say, Basi, for sharing all of that. It's such a beautiful presentation and very nicely, you know, represents our culture and how we do this work. I'm watching the chat as well, and I see a lot of comments in here, and people saying they love Dorothy, and Brooke Woods is thanking you for giving a shout out, and just that we appreciate your work. I wanted to open the space for a couple minutes if anyone has any comments before we transition over to Flora. So yeah, thanks again, Eva. We can just continue and switch over to Flora now if you'd like to, if you have any closing, or we can do that in a bit as well too.
Yeah, I think I will switch over to Flora, because like I was saying with the beaver, she has some excellent barbecue sauce that we need to, she's going to talk all about it. So I'm going to stop sharing real quick just so I can get her presentation, and then I'll start sharing again. I'm going to run her slideshow for her.
Okay.
Flora.
Yes. Can you hear me better?
It's okay, but we can.
Yeah, it seems to be a little low still.
Oh no, I'm even using my phone.
We can hear you though. We'll just turn up our sound.
Is that better?
It's good.
Okay.
Okay, view, present. All right. Okay, Flora, I'll take you to your next slide.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this is me picking the high bush cranberry. And next. And so what I think about when I pick our traditional berries is I look at it differently. I look at food a little differently because we're so used to making jellies and jams with our traditional berries. But what about making your own barbecue sauce or your own ketchup using the high bush cranberries? You can also use the low bush cranberries. And then just, we're always aware of when to pick it. We're always looking at the berries. Are they ready for it? And then just keeping that in mind because it's changing now. Well, the climate, the changes that are going on. So when I look at the high bush cranberries, I look at is it completely red? Because you can pick it when it's just starting to get red, but the redness in the berry actually translates into your sauce. So you're going to pick when it turns into completely red, then the sauce will be very red. And here I have some that are ready next. And so what I do is I cook the cranberries, and you can see some of them are past red, they're turning kind of yellow, and that's fine too, but you really want them to just be red. And the pulp or the berries I put through a food mill because there's a large seed in the berry that you want to get out. And you can use a food mill or you can use cheese cloth, but a food mill works better.
Flora, sorry, sorry to interrupt you, but we can't really hear you.
Oh no.
I wonder if we could just take a moment to switch over to your computer audio, or someone mentioned headphones. Yeah, I just want to make sure that I can hear all of this because I love your imagery and I'm so interested.
Is that better at all?
Oh, yeah, that's a lot better.
I'm talking right into my phone, headphone,
okay,
or my phone. So the cranberries, especially when you're cooking it, and in this recipe, I'm cooking it right in vinegar. So, and I don't use white vinegar because white vinegar is very strong, actually too strong, I think. So I'm using apple cider vinegar, which is, it's milder, but still when you're cooking it in your house, your entire house, I swear, will be very vinegary. So it's best to use, if you have the air outside of your stove, your, what do they call it, ventilator, you should use that. And then after it cools, then you strain it in the food mill. And actually the food mill is quicker. I know I did talk about using a cheese cloth. You can use it, but it just takes a long time. And then you can discard the pulp, or you can compost it. I think composting is perfect for it. Next. And then the sauce itself, it's very pretty. It's got this wonderful color. It's high in antioxidants. Next. So I showed these ingredients, and so if you do make this barbecue sauce, make sure to cut your vegetables really small. The smaller the better, because it doesn't really cook down. And the smaller pieces actually impart more flavor. So just remember that. And then also the recipe does ask for a lot of ingredients. So especially the garlic, it uses an entire head, which is, you would think, oh my goodness, I can't use that much. But believe me, you must use the entire head, because it will, your end product will be just amazing. And then the jalapenos are optional. And when I made this recipe, I left out the seeds, because the seeds have the heat. And just remember, if you do leave the seeds in, that the cooking process will reduce the flavor. So you're going to reduce the sauce, even though I showed you the beginning of the cranberry sauce. Once you add the vegetables, you're going to reduce it. So any seeds, jalapeno seeds you leave in there, will definitely add a lot of heat. Next. These are the spices. And I've had people tell me that they decided at the last minute that they couldn't add a tablespoon, because that's what the recipe is asking for, a tablespoon of this and a tablespoon of that. And so, but believe me, you must add exactly what the recipe asks for, and you will not be sorry. So this looks like a huge amount, and it will be an intensely flavored barbecue sauce, but it will stand up to beaver, to moose, to bison, and actually they go together because they grow together, right? Next. So just some pictures of wood bison that were relocated to Shageluk in 2015. And I don't know the number of them now, but they are growing. And so that is what we're looking forward to. I'm not sure when, hopefully within the next few years. Next. So just a few pictures of the honey bison sage sausage that you can make. Just one of the ideas that you can use the sauce in. And last week I used the hybrid cranberry barbecue sauce in a baked bean recipe, and it was awesome. So there was no tomato. Yes, so there you have it. Thank you.
Wow, Masi Cho, Flora, these all look amazing. I'm actually starting to get quite hungry. And I see some comments here, but it looks great. Yeah, looks really good. I was curious, do you gather like wild sage? I know that we have sage that grows in Alaska. I was curious about that, and my daughter was just asking me if we had wild sage, if you knew about that.
I don't know about it. I've never heard of wild sage up here. I am always looking for new native plants to use. And I heard one elder say that you should spend time with one plant at a time. and like get to know it. And so this is the second year that I've been working with fireweed. And so what I do is I will make pickled fireweed, and I tried cooking with it, but it doesn't do well cooking. You can serve it in salads, but it's really excellent in pickling. But you have to pickle it when they're really young, like 3 inches tall. And the taller they get, they become woody. So, but that's what I would say is, get to know one plant at a time and really understand it before you jump into the next thing. And berries, I've grown up with. I love them.
Yeah, definitely. Those recipes look amazing. I see some comments here. So yeah, we're just taking this time, opening it up for discussion and any questions we may have for Eva and Flora. I'm just so grateful for all that you've shared with us today. And my apologies for any technical difficulties. Sometimes those things happen, and that's okay. We're all learning how to stay connected through social distancing, and that's fine. So Whitney has some information on Sage and Kimberly, if they wanted to jump in and share anything, but we have at least 15 minutes still for a discussion. So I encourage anyone to go ahead and turn your video on and go ahead and jump in if you had any comments or questions here for Eva and Flora, or if you wanted to share any of that information on Sage.
Yeah, I am Whitney Youngman. I'm the coordinator for the Traditional Healing Clinic at South Central Foundation. We actually do have a kind of a virtual plant walk for one of the lakes in town, and we give a little bit of information on some of the edible and traditionally medicinal plants that naturally grow here. I can put it in the chat box if you wanted to click through it. But that was one of the projects that we completed this past year with social distancing and COVID and whatnot. We also do a annual to Cottonwood plant symposium, and last year we did talk about the wormwood sage. So go ahead and share that.
Great, Masi Cho, Whitney, thank you for sharing that. If anyone else would like to share, the floor is open. And she did share a link in the chat. Yeah, so Eva, I really appreciated you sharing about fish camp and those great memories or experiences, of doing that with your family. And that I really connected with that. I love fishing and just, having that, having grown up in my grandma and grandpa's fish camp downriver from Fort Yukon and being raised on the river with my family, it's just such good memories, and I feel like it's such an important part of healing. So I appreciate you sharing that, and that's my favorite time of the year, being able to work in the smokehouse. And so, yeah. Anyone else have any comments?
I have a comment too. So, with COVID, we had planned some food gatherings sooner. We wanted to do it sooner, but they're ending up later. So I'm working on some things and I'm not sure if we'll be able to pull it off. I'm hoping that we do a plant and medicine gathering. I think Nenana would be a really cool spot to do it and invite people down from Fairbanks. And we want to invite Flora up to do the fireweed pickling. I talked to another person about the fireweed shoots, and they were like, he said, oh yeah, those are like asparagus. They're so good. And so I think it's really cool that when we start bringing people together and like, well, what do you think about, and then everybody starts sharing stories, right? And then we start to learn from one another. And I think with the way that life is taking us, it's really cool because even though traditional knowledge, we'll say loss of traditional knowledge, we're in the prime spot to capture and share what traditional knowledge we know and have now, like putting it on Facebook, making videos, going with the kids and having them learn stuff over the computer. Like we have some tools that can really help us, I think. And so we want to hold some classes too in person, like so you guys can see Flora in all of her magic and the glory and all the cool things she does.
That is so exciting and good to know. There's questions here for Flora. How do you have a way to share the recipe? And they're really interested they love the fireweed stalks.
So is it a barbecue recipe? I can email it or text it or.
Yeah, we also have an email too that for people to reach us at info@nativepeoplesaction.org. And we also have Facebook Messenger. So if you wanted to send Native People's Action a message, we could help connect people as well.
Oh, this is my business. I teach cooking. I am a chef. I'm a trained chef, and I advocate traditional foods. And I'm always I look at food differently. And so, yeah, I think it's really important now to take care of our berries and our traditional foods. And I was talking to several people about, I don't know if you've seen it, but last fall, I've never seen so many people picking berries. And I think it was because of COVID. And so it really worried me that they were taking berries out of season because they didn't know. In fact, they were picking all three berries, the crowberries, the blowbush cranberries, and the blueberries all together. And so that's something that might need to be addressed.
Yeah, that's really good information. I see Kelsey has a question.
I was just wondering if anybody knew of any online events to learn about traditional medicinal plants or harvesting. I see that Lena is on and Mo is on too, and I know that they do awesome work with like prenatal medicinal plants, but I was just wondering if anybody knew of anything for folks who are wanting to learn more.
Do you know Mita?
Mita DeWitt?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
She is a native plant expert as far as I know.
Awesome. Yeah, I see that they share some things out sometimes, but I was just wondering if anyone knew of any classes. She's a great resource, though.
Brianna, Kelsey, Helen McNeil is sharing some ideas with her berries. Helen, do you want to share some of those? Do you want to say those?
Yeah. Whenever I make jelly or sauces, I'll liquefy my berries after they've been cooked in my blender. I have a Ninja blender, but I know there's other ones out on the market that do liquefy, and that way you don't lose the nutrients from the whole berry. A lot of it is in the pulp, a lot of the flavor too.
Kunal Sheesh for sharing. Wow. I see Margaret is doing some research for us now, and she has found, Margaret, do you want to share?
I'll probably mispronounce it, but it's Pushkalatish. They do some classes and whatnot, and I know they have one coming up here soon, and it's all about traditional plants and healing. And then they just started one last week of like Tlingit language in the beginning, speaking of that. So they do a lot of like seminars or, you know, online Zoom meetings for it. And I know they have one for like medical plants and stuff. So, but they're on Facebook. The spelling of it's in the chat box there. So if you kind of like research that, then they'll have events that they do.
Wow, this is so great to connect and share with one another of all these amazing things happening around food. Oh, wow, Mamie is a guest speaker for that tonight. Mamie, do you want to share a bit about the storytelling?
Yes, the storytelling is Aniadu'u, and that means your point of view. So the story that we are having discussions about, it's on Monday and Wednesday. Tommy Jimmy is sharing the story of how Raven was born into the world the first time he was born of stone. And yeah, it's a really good discussion, bringing in the elements of Mother Earth, air, and relating them to your emotions. It's here's the story. I've given you a beginning. What do you see missing? Koteon Tutin, Hashuka is we're putting back the pieces of our identity through these stories and songs. And tonight is Medicine with Naomi Mickelson, and I'm one of the guest speakers.
Is this on Lachish storytelling on Facebook?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Oh, that's so interesting. I want to go.
Yes, that's it's the storytelling is Monday and Wednesday, language is Thursday mornings, and the medicine is at night.
Wow. Okay, well, thank you everyone for your comments, suggestions, and all of these great links that you're sharing. Yes, there's one for nativebirthworkers.org for their events. Thanks, Mo. So yeah, and I just want to show my appreciation for Eva and for Flora, all of the work that you're doing. I want to say Anabasi to you, and thank you for keeping us connected to our homelands and teaching us, you know, about the spirituality and all of those things that are connected in that. it's such important work that we're doing. And so much appreciated. And I encourage everyone to follow these links and to connect with one another and network. There's so many great things happening. So really exciting stuff. And with that, I'd like to, in closing, I'd like to let you know that our next event is on February 25th. And that's going to be traditional tattooing with Sarah Whalen Lunn and Holly Nordlum. So we'll see you then. And we also have a lot of really great guest speakers that will be coming in next month too. So join us for Thursday wellness events. We'll see you again, and take care, and remember to eat lots of good native food and give thanks to our land that provides. So Masih Cho everyone, and we'll see you again soon.
See you later.
Thank you, Flora. Thank you, Eva. See you.